Eco-friendly America: How Living Green is Shaping the Future. Welcome to English with Billy, the podcast where we explore the habits, choices, and movements shaping our world today. I'm your host, Billy, and today we're discussing a topic that's becoming more important to many people every day: living green and the environmental movement in the United States. In recent years, more and more people in the U.S. have become aware of the need to protect the environment. From recycling programs to electric cars and sustainable energy, the country is seeing a rise in efforts to live in a more eco-friendly way. But how did the environmental movement start? What changes are happening now? And what challenges still remain? In this episode, we'll talk about the history of environmentalism in the U.S., some of the most significant efforts to protect the planet, and what individuals and communities are doing to live green. And, as always, we'll introduce some new words to help you better understand this topic. The environmental movement in the United States has a long and interesting history. It really started gaining attention in the 1960s and 1970s. In 1962, a scientist named Rachel Carson published a book called Silent Spring. The book warned about the dangers of pesticides, chemicals that are used to kill insects but also harm the environment. Her work inspired many people to start thinking seriously about protecting the Earth. Then, in 1970, the first Earth Day was celebrated. This day brought millions of people together to raise awareness about environmental issues. It was a turning point that led to important changes, like the creation of the Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, and laws to protect clean air and water. Since then, the environmental movement has grown, with people working to fight pollution, save endangered species, and slow down climate change. But it hasn't always been easy. There are disagreements about how to balance protecting the environment with economic growth. Let's learn the term pesticides. Pesticides are chemicals used to kill pests, like insects, that damage crops. While they help farmers grow food, they can also harm other living things and pollute the environment. Okay, so moving on. What does it mean to live green? Living green means making choices that are better for the environment. It can be simple, everyday actions like recycling or turning off the lights when you leave a room, or bigger decisions like driving an electric car or using solar panels on your house. Recycling is one of the most common ways people in the U.S. try to reduce waste. Many cities have recycling programs, and people separate their paper, plastic, glass, and metal from the trash. But recycling isn't perfect. Not all materials can be recycled, and some recycled items still end up in landfills. Another way people are living green is by reducing their use of plastic. Americans are using reusable shopping bags, stainless steel water bottles, and biodegradable products to cut down on plastic waste. Some cities and states have even banned plastic straws or shopping bags to help the environment. Here's a new word: biodegradable. If something is biodegradable, it can break down naturally and safely in the environment, unlike plastic, which takes hundreds of years to decompose. Nowadays, many Americans are also trying to reduce their carbon footprint. This means using less energy and finding ways to lower greenhouse gas emissions. Walking, biking, or taking public transportation instead of driving is one way to help. Eating less meat and more plant-based foods is another, as meat production is a big contributor to greenhouse gases. One of the biggest changes in the environmental movement is the push for renewable energy. Renewable energy comes from sources that don't run out, like the sun, wind, and water. Solar panels and wind turbines are becoming more common in the U.S., and some states are investing heavily in renewable energy to reduce dependence on fossil fuels. Electric cars, like those made by Tesla, are also gaining popularity. These cars don't use gasoline and produce no emissions, making them a cleaner option for the environment. Companies like Ford and General Motors are also making electric vehicles more affordable and available to the public. Green technology is advancing, but there are challenges. For example, making solar panels and electric car batteries requires rare materials that can be difficult to mine. There's also the issue of cost. Installing solar panels or buying an electric car can be expensive, even though they save money over time. The environmental movement isn't just about technology, it's also about people coming together to make a difference. Young activists like Greta Thunberg have inspired millions around the world to demand action on climate change. In the U.S., community groups organize tree planting events, beach cleanups, and protests to raise awareness. Many schools are teaching kids about the environment and how to protect it. Students learn about the importance of conservation and how small changes can make a big impact. Some communities have started composting programs, where people turn their food waste into natural fertilizer for gardens. Businesses are also getting involved. More companies are using sustainable practices, like using recycled materials or reducing energy use. Consumers are demanding that brands be more environmentally friendly, and some are choosing to shop with companies that care about the planet. Here's a word to know. Composting. Composting is the process of turning organic waste, like food scraps and leaves, into nutrient-rich soil. It helps reduce waste and creates natural fertilizer for plants. Despite the progress, there are still big challenges. Climate change is a global problem that requires cooperation from every country. And the U.S. has faced criticism for not always doing enough. Some people worry that government policies to fight climate change could hurt the economy or cost too many jobs, especially in industries like coal and oil. There's also debate about what individuals can do versus what governments and companies should be responsible for. While small actions like recycling are important, large-scale changes, like reducing emissions from factories, require political and corporate action. Living green in the United States is a growing trend, but it's also a complicated one. People are becoming more environmentally conscious and finding creative ways to protect the planet. But there is still a long way to go. The choices we make today will shape the future of our world. Thank you for listening to English with Billy. I hope this episode inspired you to think about the ways you can make a difference for the environment. If you enjoyed today's show, be sure to subscribe and join us again as we explore life, culture, and the challenges we all face. Until next time, stay curious and stay green.